is the Upstate Hoops Podcast, recorded live in the studios of FingerLakes1.com. Let's tip it off.
Welcome, Finger Lakes basketball fans, to another edition of the Upstate Hoops Podcast. It's Thursday, January 31st, 2013, and this is episode number 13 of Season 2, coming at you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in snowy downtown Seneca Falls, New York. If you're up near the lakes, you're getting a little lake effect here in Auburn and Seneca Falls. It's coming down quite hard at this moment. I'm Jim Sinacropi, and as usual, I'm joined tonight by my co-host, former New York State Small Schools Player of the Year, Matt Verke.
Hey, Jim, what's going on tonight?
Got a great show on tap tonight, Verk, and a special treat. Holding on the line, we have Don Oakleaf, Lions class of 1962, and the starting center on the great Wayne County championship teams that featured Jim Boeheim, who also graduated from Lyons in 1962. So we're excited to talk to Mr. Oakleaf about his memories of the great Lyons-Newark basketball rivalry as the two schools are set to meet for the first time since 1970 on Saturday night in Newark. So we'll take a look back at the week in the Wayne Finger Lakes High School basketball leagues, including Newark's stunning upset of Wayne on Tuesday night, giving the undefeated Geneva Panthers full control in the Finger Lakes East. We'll give you our players of the week, our power rankings, and much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Madej, Miris, and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. If you've been injured and deserve compensation, call the Finger Lakes Personal Injury Hotline at 315-568-0911. And also by Generations Bank. Generations of service for over 140 years. That's almost as long as Newark and Lions haven't played. Visit them online at mygenbank.com and check out their new mobile banking app in the iPhone or Android app stores. And Newark Pilots Baseball season ticket packages now available for the 2013 season at beautiful Colburn Park. Visit newarkpilots.com for more information. Well, on Saturday night, FingerLakes1.com Sports will be in Wayne County as the Lions visit the Newark Reds for the first time in 43 years. And ahead of this live webcast, which tips off at 7 p.m. Saturday night, we thought it would be wise to learn a little bit more about the history of the rivalry. And who better to help fill us in than a man who played in the legendary games. So with that, it's my great pleasure to welcome in, currently calling in from Canandaigua, Mr. Don Oakleaf. Good evening, Don.
Good evening, Jim.
Any snow out your way?
It's we've got the same snow that you do over in Seneca Falls. We're just barely south of the Thruway, too, so it's reaching us now as well.
Well, looks like we'll be doing some shoveling tomorrow morning.
Yes, it does.
So, Don, tell us a little bit more about your high school basketball career in terms of, what years you played varsity and what those teams accomplished. And I was even talking to some folks that said you didn't lose a game as a modified freshman or JV player. Is that accurate?
Yeah. We started together. Part of the real success of our team was that we started practicing together when we were in sixth grade. So it was starting in 1956, essentially it was the formation of the nucleus of the team. And Dick Blackwell, the varsity coach, actually had us engaged in practices at the elementary school on Saturday mornings.
And everybody always showed up. It was like a treat, probably.
It was. And as a result, basically, we had 6 years to work together. We spent that time on sort of a formal basis, but there was also a lot of time that we spent both at the elementary school outside and at Jim Boeheim's house having pickup games. So the other amazing thing is that over that 6-year period, we didn't lose a single player in terms of somebody moving or somebody moving in. So the continuity was there from the very beginning, including, having the coach present to get us started in the fundamentals and the conditioning and even into some set plays. So that really gave us a big leg up on where we were headed. right. We didn't lose really until our junior year. We lost one game to Canandaigua, a fairly close game, and we lost, obviously, in the sectionals to Franklin, a game that we were ahead for 3/4 of the game, but there's a guy by the name of Trent Jackson and Bill Slater who woke up in the fourth quarter and started draining outside shots, and they caught us and passed us. So that was a very frustrating event. That was at the U of R Palestra.
Well, that's
senior year. We didn't lose a game during the year, and then obviously went on to the AA finals because we had been Coach Blackwell had been successful in getting us into the AA category, even though we were a smaller school.
Don, Coach Blackwell, he sought out tougher competition. He could have stayed and played some of the schools that were the same size as Lyons, but he always wanted to go west and play better competition.
You are correct, and that was that was what we did. And since we were prepared, we did fairly well. Even in our senior year, I think both years actually, we scrimmaged against McQuaid and Franklin in terms of getting ready for our season. So we had some experience with playing against city teams. We also played Mount Carmel out of Auburn, and then we went down to Schenectady to play a team called Mohanson, which was a large suburban school down there, and were successful in beating them as well. So we were 20-0 going into the sectional finals against East Rochester.
Mm-hmm. Some say the greatest game in Section 5 basketball history was that game.
Yeah, there are people who remember that, have remembered that for a long time. Partly because I think the whole town of Lyons was there, as well as many of our supporters from the Wayne Finger Lakes League. They had close to 10,000 people there, which still is a pretty strong record of how significant that game was.
Yeah, that's a huge crowd for a high school game. Now, set the stage for us a little bit here. Lyons was up by 15 at the half in that game against ER, and then the score was tied at the end of regulation. ER finally wins in triple overtime, and Jim Boeheim still says that's one of his most bitter losses, and we know he has a couple losses that are stinging as well as coach of Syracuse, but tell us a little bit about how the end of that game played out.
It was very tight. I think it ended. The regulation ended, I think, like 45 all. So in the two overtimes, there were only 12 and 13 points scored for each team. So it was obviously a fairly tight defensive struggle in the overtimes. But obviously East Rochester came into it undefeated as well, and their team went on to extend their winning streak for another 20 games the next year. So it wasn't, it was definitely a colossal struggle in terms of the two teams being ready to play.
I also heard a story about that you guys were up by 40 points after the first quarter against Canandaigua team. Then Coach Blackwell was friends with the coach of that Canandaigua team, and Coach Blackwell was upset with some of the starters for he felt kind of running up the score early, and he pulled some guys, including Boeheim. Is that a true story?
That might be one interpretation. I don't. We just got off to a roaring start in that game. We scored 40 points in a quarter, which those were 8-minute quarters at that time. So we focused on taking advantage of opportunities. We spent a lot of time beginning with the first year of our working together on fast breaks. We spent time in practice every day on weaving for fast breaks and getting the outlet pass out there. So that we were extremely successful in that first quarter against Canandaigua. I don't know that he was I don't recall that Dick was disappointed in us. I think he didn't want to bury Canandaigua.
Right.
He might have had a reason to. As I mentioned to you before, Canandaigua beat us the year before, so there might have been a payback element. But getting up by 40 in the first quarter certainly was plenty of payback, and we ended up almost doubling their score that game. It ended up being 85-44. So any payback for the previous year, he certainly accomplished, and I didn't want to overdo it.
As you know, Lyons is visiting Newark on Saturday night, a game that we're going to be live webcasting. And would you have ever thought back in the days that you were playing that there would be a span of 43 years where these teams who are neighboring communities wouldn't play a single basketball game? Could you even fathom that?
I could not fathom that, Jim. It's in fact, when you called to talk to me about this situation, first I'd heard that there weren't Newark Lions games going on, over the past 43 years. Obviously, I haven't paid as close attention to the year-to-year struggles of the Lions team. But you're absolutely right. Based on where we were back then, both Newark and Lyons are similar size communities, schools. We're only 7 miles apart. Generally speaking, we've both had good teams over the years. But the thing that also zeroed in the rivalry that we had was that we were the two primary teams in Wayne County that would qualify for the sectionals. And so
right.
Consequently, that the two games that we played against Newark each year determined who was going on to the sectionals. So each team had a very strong incentive to put their best game forward for those two games of the year. And in fact, in our senior year, I look back, the two Newark games were the closest games we had our entire senior year, except for obviously the East Rochester game, because we ended up beating most of our competition, which was the rest of the Finger Lakes, Geneva, Penn Yan, Waterloo, Seneca Falls, Canandaigua, by an average of over 30 points a game.
Let's see if our producer can put up Coach Blackwell's record on the screen here. We've got his career record. I just want to take a quick look at it. There it is. And you can see from your first year on varsity was 60-61, and your senior year was 61-62. And Newark had a stranglehold on the county title and the Wayne Finger Lakes title, and then the semifinals your junior year, and then to the finals, which your team was one of the most legendary teams, I think, in Section 5 history, especially here in the Finger Lakes. When people talk about historical teams. And, of course, having Jim Boeheim on that team's a large part of that as well. But a lot of people don't know, never won a sectional title.
Right.
And so, maybe that's why, Burke, that Boeheim thinks that that's one of his most bitter losses.
Yeah, I'm sure that stings. And obviously things were a little different back then. There wasn't as many classes.
Yep.
And obviously when you have, Lions playing against, East Rochester and Newark, playing some bigger schools, it's not like it is today. It was just, you had to, like Don was saying, just to get in the sectionals, you really had to battle, and you had to have a great team. There's a chance you could be 17-3 and not even qualify for sectionals, which now everybody qualifies, yeah. Everybody gets a shot. But I talked to my dad a little bit about that, and back then you're playing bigger and better competition, obviously.
And a lot of people don't know. Well, a lot of people do know, but some people may not. Matt's father, Rod, coached Lions to a state title in 79-80, was it, Verk?
I think it was 80-81 when they won the state title.
So there's that time. And your dad's going to be in the house on Saturday night for that game, too.
He's excited for it. He never coached against Newark
Yeah,
I
noticed that, too. I went to look at that, and he came on in 75, 76, I think, which was 5 or 6 years when they stopped playing. So,
yep.
Don, you're also a great tennis player too. Huh? I heard that the Newark and Lions also dominated the tennis leagues back then.
Yes, we did. Dick Chafee, I think, was his name.
Huh.
So we had several battles. And but I didn't get as far in the sectional the competition as I would have liked. But the players in Rochester had a little more experience, a little more time on their hands, I think.
Can you talk a little bit about the atmosphere and the crowds in those Newark Lions games? Was it something that the players on your team looked forward to and the community looked forward to?
Yes. We were when you brought up the concept of rivalry, I was sort of over-focused on some of the negative aspects that you read about with rivalries these days. And as I look back and I talked to a couple of my teammates, there really was no negative aspect to the rivalry with Newark or with any other school. We started out with a focus on developing our team, and our team worked together well. We enjoyed playing basketball. And so all the focus from our perspective and also from Newark's perspective was on, what happened on the court. It was just I'd say, almost a professional atmosphere. We were there to play basketball and have a good, clean game of basketball, and that was it. And I think in terms of the crowds, we filled high school gymnasiums, all throughout the Wayne Finger Lakes. Not that they were that large, but and part of that was that back in that era, there were actually, we call them cheer clubs, but booster clubs, where the school actually, sent 2 or 3 buses of students to each game. In addition to which, you had, the parents of the players and quite a large contingent of just outside community members who, enjoyed basketball. So there was always a very positive, electric environment for each one of our games.
Hey Don, when did you guys play at the Atwood gym? Was that around when you were playing?
In Newark?
In Lyons. Was it the high school gym was there then?
The brand new gym, the main gym was there.
Okay.
The community center that's obviously been built more recently obviously wasn't there. But the junior senior high school was where we played. Okay. We were fortunate in that day, in that era, that we actually had glass backboards. We were the only
one of the first, right, in Lyons?
Yeah, we were the first in out in this region. We didn't have a wooden floor though. That made life a little more difficult. We had a composition floor that wasn't very forgiving. If you
they had that floor for a long time.
Yes,
because I remember going to practice with my father and even watching. I think they had that even into the 90s almost.
Yeah, I can remember hearing about it.
And then they
stories about it.
They finally got the wood in there. Was Clyde a big rival back then, or was it more of the bigger schools?
It was more of the bigger schools. I look back. We did play Clyde twice during our senior year, but those games were not close. Clyde did not have much in the way of basketball.
More of a football school
at
back
that
then.
Point. We also played them in football. They were much better in football.
Now, speaking of other schools in the Wayne Finger Lakes League, what gym was the toughest to play in back then?
No question. Hands down, it was DeSales.
And how come?
DeSales, the DeSales gym is the one that Hobart used for quite a few years. And so it was a full, college spec gymnasium. So it was long. So you were going to be in for a long run of evening, a lot of running in any one game. So that was probably the most challenging in terms of its layout. I guess the other extreme also existed with, I think it was Canandaigua and Penn Yan, in that they were old academy buildings where the gym floor ended, and 3 feet from the out of bounds line was a wall. And in both of those cases, they had exit doors right at the end of the basketball court. So obviously you had to be a little careful when you went lunging after a ball that you weren't headed for an exit door. But those were and Waterloo was relatively small at that point too, but didn't have the exit door issue.
Well, before I let you go, Don, I got to ask you, when you were back in those days playing on the team with Jim Boeheim, could you have even the slightest inkling that you were lacing them up, in the locker room next to a guy who was going to win 900 college basketball games as a coach?
It's easy to say at that point, no. Didn't have any idea because, as everyone has seen, Jim isn't the type of guy that looks like your classic, long-term basketball player. But when having spent a lot of time with Jim in the basketball environment, there wasn't anybody who could match him in terms of, basketball IQ and thinking ahead and being involved in every play, regardless of where it was. So he definitely was, a keen basketball mind, if you will. And there's no question but what he hated to lose. And you referred to that earlier. He hated to lose, and he's alluded to that in his 900 and X number ceremonies. That it's not, don't give me credit for all the games I've won. I spend most of the time talking to, worrying about the games that I lost, and that's because he does think basketball all the time, and he thought basketball all through high school and spent time perfecting his skill, but also I think he learned a lot of his strategic and tactical acumen, if you will, from Dick Blackwell. I mean, basically, we focused on all aspects of the game. We played different types of zones while we were in high school. It wasn't just a 2-3. It depended on who we were playing. For Newark, we might have played a 1-3-1 because Pete Decker at 6'5" or 6'6", he was taller than I was, so we had to do something to keep from getting that ball inside. And so we played a 1-2-2, we played a 1-3-1, we played a 2-3. We even pressed on occasion just to keep people honest. So I think he learned a lot, and a lot of what you're seeing, certainly that fast break mentality that you've seen Syracuse use goes way back to our early days at Lyons, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's interesting. And anybody that wants to learn kind of more about this time period can read the autobiography by Scott Petoniak called "Color Him Orange." It's and I'm sure you've read that, Don. You're in that book. You're mentioned in that book.
That's right.
And so is a lot of guys in a lot of local communities. The first several chapters are about Jim Boeheim growing up and playing ball with these guys. With their fingers frozen out back with the baskets on the garages and playing on the dirt in the backyard, and in that book they talk about all those games that we kind of discussed tonight, and it's a real interesting book. And then of course the book goes on to chronicle Jim Boeheim's storied career, but certainly for any fan of the history of Wayne Finger Lakes basketball, that book's a must read. So
right, and I have read it, and it is interesting looking back. I mean, you're asking the question looking forward, did I have any idea? No, probably didn't. But as I look back, Jim was really fortunate and to a large degree an opportunist, because he was fortunate to be in Lyons at a point where Blackwell was there. Blackwell only spent 15 years coaching basketball. Mm-hmm. So he got to take advantage of 4 out of the 15 years. He goes on to Syracuse and ends up rooming with Dave Bing.
Yep.
And Dave Bing, ended up being both a tremendous influence in terms of his basketball growth, but also his personal growth. And because Jim was pretty much a small town guy. And he still is a very humble individual. He will not take credit for a lot of the things that I think he should take credit for. You don't just win 900, games and go to the Hall of Fame and
Right.
win a national championship without, some good leadership.
Right.
So I think he's and he really got to Syracuse at an ideal time. They supported him with facilities, and
Roosevelt Bowie came along with him.
Roosevelt
Yep.
Bowie and Louis Orr. So he's taken advantage of the opportunities that were presented to him, and just pursued it, each step at a time, and very proud of it.
Well, Don, thanks so much for taking some time here on a snowy Thursday night to talk with us about these great memories and history. And we hope you'll be able to log on to fingerlakes1.com on Saturday night at 7 and check out that Newark Lions game live.
I'm not sure. I might get too excited.
Well, you can always, it'll be available the next day on the recorded version on the site too. So if you want to, if you can't handle the excitement, you could always tune in the next day. So
very good.
But again, thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and enjoy the game tomorrow, our Saturday night.
Will do.
Thanks, Don.
Okay, have a good night, Don.
Yep. Bye, Matt.
See you later, Don.
So we'll be right back with all the results from the past week in Wayne Finger Lakes action after this from our sponsors.
Attention Finger Lakes residents, have you been injured and deserve compensation? Call Madej, Maris, and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. Your case deserves personal attention. At Madej, Maris, and Ricky, they know you by name, not just a number on a folder. Call the Finger Lakes Personal Injury Hotline at 315-568-0911. That's 315-568-0911. Madej, Maris, and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys.
The Newark Pilots. See tomorrow's Major League stars today. For more information, go to newarkpilots.com.
The most valuable things are always passed down from generation to generation. It's true for your family, and it's true for our bank. For more than 140 years at Generations Bank, we've greeted you by name, planned with you for the future, and stood by you when you needed a hand. It's what we do, and what we'll continue to do for generations into the future. We might look different now, but in the important ways, we're exactly like we've always been. Stop in your local branch or go to mygenbank.com.
So many sights to see on the internet, but for everything local, there's no place you can get it. At fingerlakes1.com. Come on over to fingerlakes1.com. Like that's your homepage. News, weather, sports, and fun. Log on to fingerlakes1.
www.fingerlakes1.com.
And welcome back to the Upstate Hoops podcast, and a special thanks again to Don Oakleaf for a great discussion. I just love that stuff, and I hope a lot of our viewers do too, kind of reminiscing about the way that league was back then. And, I still think it's a great league. Wayne Finger Lakes basketball, to this day, and part of it's because of that history, and part of it's because of the communities.
Yeah, I think with Lyons and Newark, obviously they haven't played in close to 40 years or over 40 years, but they're two of the winningest schools in Section 5 history. I know since they've started keeping track of all that stuff. Since 1975, Lyons and Clyde, I think they're 1 and 2 with the most wins, and they're right up there in the top 5 in winning percentage and number 1 seeds and sectional titles. Lyons has a few more sectional titles. I think it took Newark a little bit. Newark kind of really started winning sectional titles 70s and the 80s, and obviously into the 90s and 2000s now. But and Lyons had some from way back in the day, and then kind of dominated the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s now with from my dad on to Coach Shaw and on to Coach Veter and now Coach Young, and Coach Young's still looking for his first sectional title, and maybe that will happen for them this year. That'd be great to see. But two schools who have really had a lot to say in sectionals, and and Wayne Finger Lakes is a great league. They, if you look at the stats, Wayne and the Finger Lakes have the most sectional titles of more than any league in Section 5 history. So a lot of great teams and great tradition in the area.
Yeah, well, as mentioned, these teams haven't played in 43 years. They're meeting on Saturday night, live on Finger Lakes One Sports at 7 p.m., and the last time they met, they played 3 times in that 69-70 season. Newark won the first game by 21 at home. Lyons won the rematch in Lyons by 7, and then the rubber match was held in Marion's new gym. At the time, it was the new gym, and Lyons won by 19 points to qualify for Double A, and that was the last year that Lyons played Double A and in the Wayne Finger Lakes League, and they moved to just how it is now playing in the Wayne County League.
They kind of split the schools up by size and took the smaller, the Wayne County schools from over that way. And the Finger Lakes schools, obviously, in Newark went to play with some of the bigger schools at the time, Minders, Canandaigua, Victor. But, and Palmyra used to be, when I was in high school, Palmyra was in Wayne County also. Palmac always played in Wayne County.
Palmyra's a Wayne County community,
and, then they recently they were kind of bigger than every school over there. And
especially after they merged.
And Wayne was also in Wayne County League, you know what I mean?
Right, way up there in Ontario.
So, they've been in the Finger Lakes now for maybe 10 years, playing over in the Finger Lakes League, but they were always part of Wayne County also.
So Saturday night, 7 o'clock, whether you're a Newark grad, a Lyons grad, or just a general fan of basketball, I don't think this is going to be a game you're going to want to miss. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the players involved at the end of the show here, Verk. But now let's get to some present times. Let's talk about some action from this week in the Wayne Finger Lakes Leagues. On Friday night, it was Minders heading to Geneva, and Geneva keeps on rolling, 64-42. Terrell Johnson had 11 points and 10 rebounds. Junior Sims had 9, and Sweeney had 18. Passalacqua led the way for Minders with 16. Luke Ruddy had 15. And, they already had a win over Minders at Arthur L. Baker, and not a shocking win there, but that was an opportunity for Minders to maybe last gasp effort.
Yeah, I think Minders kind of, hit a little rough spot here. Last couple games they played Wayne and Geneva, and neither game was really close. And the first time they played them, they were competitive games, and this time it seems like, I don't know if Minders just didn't play as well or Geneva and Wayne were playing that much better. But hopefully Minders can get back on track here. They got a couple games here where they should get some wins. I know they got like Whitman, Waterloo, and Mid-Lakes coming up. So hopefully they can get back on track, and then they end up with Newark at Newark, which, it's going to be a very tough game. I think, Minders, we webcast that game, and that's going to be a hard game for Minders to go into Newark and get a win.
Yeah.
But
got an overtime win at home, and now they got to go to their gym.
Yeah, but get ready for sectionals and go from there.
Also, Friday night, you mentioned Wayne. They beat Mid-Lakes 79-42. It was Trey Lamore with 21, Ben Bobo and Paul Dienhart with 11 each. That moved Wayne to 12-1 at the time. Mason Jones had 16 for Mid-Lakes in the loss. And here was a bit of I don't want to say a surprise, but a pretty solid win in Palmyra. It was Penn Yan 51, Palmac 49. James Burdett 17. Corey Grace hit a layup for the Mustangs with 8 seconds for the win, and that evens up Penn Yan record at 6-6. We're going to see Penn Yan and Waterloo in a couple of weeks for a game we're live webcasting, and that's a nice win, I think, for Penn Yan.
Yeah, it is. And Penn Yan, I mean, they're in Class B2, which is pretty much, I think they're in B2, but I think they're going to get a decent seed and have a decent chance to maybe get to the War Memorial in the semis and play at the Blue Cross Arena.
Yeah, and they beat Newark this year.
Yeah, big win. First league game of the year, and they beat Newark.
Waterloo traveled to Whitman. Whitman wins 65-62. And also on Friday night, Bloomfield traveled to Red Jacket and came out of there with a 70-62 win. And it was Dominic Vasquez with 18 for Red Jacket, and Sean Fitzgerald had 24. Alex Flattery had 16 points, 13 rebounds for Bloomfield, who's a bit of a resurgent, making a late run here in the West.
Yeah, and just going back to that Penn Yan, I just looked it up on the website here, but right now they're a 3 seed at 7-7, 6-6. Actually, they're 7-6 now.
Yeah, because they won their next.
And they won their next one, so they're actually a 3 seed in B1. And if they made the semis, they'd play Newark, who they split with. So could be a matchup of Finger Lakes teams back in Class B1.
Friday night, Gananda played Cal Mum out of league, 66-53 loss, despite 16 from Cameron Gray. And then moving ahead to Saturday, just a couple of games. Actually, there's a handful of games on Saturday here. Dundee lost to University Prep. Bloomfield beat Early College 55-43. Naples beat School of the Arts. They had to travel for that one. Played at School of the Arts 66-61. And then a little test for Zach Young's Lions. They hosted East Rochester. They defeated them 50-38 behind an 8-0 run to start the third quarter, and DJ Long had 12 points and 10 rebounds in that win. Clyde Savannah hosted North Rose Wolcott and won 59-27 behind 18 from Tom Canale and 12 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 blocks from Cam DeSanto. Clyde's 12-1. Both those kids were up here last week for a great interview, and they went out and
they kind of said they were going to hold North Rose down.
Chris Dean, they were concerned about Chris
looks
Dean.
Looks like they did a good job against him and cruised to an easy win. Great defensive effort, holding a team under 30 points, obviously.
And then on Saturday night also it was Williamson, 55, Red Creek 46. Tom Stevens had 19. Stevie Thompson had 24 for Williamson. Now moving ahead to Tuesday night, Finger Lakes 1 was in Waterloo for the Geneva-Waterloo game, which was a 29-27 game with about 2 minutes left to go in the second quarter. And then and everybody's thinking, wow, Waterloo's sticking around here. But then Geneva kind of turned it on. Matter of fact, a kid for Waterloo missed a wide-open 3 from the corner that would have given them the lead, and Shane Sweeney ended up making a 3-point play at the other end. And then, Waterloo didn't score for the next probably 7 minutes of game time. And as Geneva opened it up and ended up that game with a, where do we have it here?
It was 83-48 final.
Right.
Junior Sims had 13, Shane Sweeney 20, Jack Walwork, who we've seen, scoring a lot more for Geneva, seems like he had 9. And Waterloo had Tom France with 11, Jonathan Jones with 12. But, that's going to be a little bit encouraging for Waterloo to, stick with Geneva for almost an entire half.
And I'll tell you, the thing about Waterloo was they started freshman Stenberg. I should have his name here. Heard it a million times.
Jones?
Well, there's Josh Jones. No, Stenberg was a freshman. It was a freshman. Started his first game. He had a nice game. Played great. And the other guy, Jones, a sophomore, was lighting up from 3. So there's a freshman and a sophomore who are, I think the future's bright for Jeff Panic in that program, to be honest with you. I was impressed with the effort, and I was impressed with the game plan by Jeff Panic, and I was impressed by the execution. But, Geneva is one of the best teams in the state.
Sure.
And Waterloo is rebuilding. And
I think Waterloo knew they were going to be a little bit down this year. Obviously, they lost a lot from last year even. And, I think they're, maybe a year or two away from, being real competitive in the Finger Lakes in a tough league. But it's nice to see, I think he's kind of getting these young kids in there and getting some experience. And hopefully it pays dividends, in years to come.
And Friday night, the big news, or Tuesday night, the big news was that Wayne came into Newark trying to get the win, set up that big rematch with Geneva for the Finger Lakes East title, but Newark wasn't having it. Newark wins 60-56 behind Jamie Rosser's 18 points and 7 rebounds. Anthony Lombardi had 12. Micah Wright had 13. Lamora had his. He had 24. Deanhart had 17, but a huge win for Newark, basically, shattering Wayne's hopes at a league title.
Yeah, it kind of takes if things play out. But, Geneva's still got Newark again.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know, but kind of takes a little bit of Wayne, having Geneva come up there in a couple weeks for a share of the league championship possibly. But, and I think we talked about it last week on the show, Newark, since that second half of the Minders game, Newark kind of grew up that game, and they've been playing really well. I think they believe in themselves a lot more now. And, I I didn't think they were going to beat Wayne, but it's not totally shocking to me. You know, I think I said that Newark was a team who could knock off some of these upper tier teams in the Finger Lakes, and you know, it's good to see. You know, kind of a little shake up there with Newark getting the big win at home, and now they have Lions coming in for a non-league game and getting ready. They're currently a 2 seed in sectionals behind Batavia, so they're gonna have a great shot here for a sectional title.
Also on Tuesday night, Penn Yan hosted Marcus Whitman, won 48-38 behind 17 from James Burdett, and then bit of an upset. Palmac traveled to Mid-Lakes. Mid-Lakes wins 56-49 for their third win of the year. Mason Jones, 27 points, 5 3-pointers, and Lewis Price, 11 points, 10 rebounds. Congratulations to the Eagles. Are they the Screaming Eagles?
I believe so.
Maybe the Screaming Eagles, but nice win for Mid-Lakes, and they've got talent on that team, Verk, and
yeah,
nice to see him get a win.
We've had some of the kids we've had come in from around the Finger Lakes and Wayne County said that Mid-Lakes had a good backcourt, and
Jones and Dakota Norris.
Yeah, they can really shoot the three, and a little surprising, but I guess not when you look at the records. Palmac's 4-9, Mid-Lakes 3-10, but it's a good win for Mid-Lakes, and hopefully they can build off of that.
Well, our buddy Ben Kratzley had 33 on Tuesday night again. Now well over 1,000 points on his career. But Honeoye traveled to Romulus South Seneca, came out with a 91-50 win. So now in the West, you're looking at them, Naples and Bloomfield. But the big game in the West was Tuesday night, where Naples went into Bloomfield and really got it handed to them in a game that could decide the West title. 66-45, the Bombers win. Sean Fitzgerald, who's been lighting it up lately, 21 points, and Jake Ball led the way for Naples with 13. So, Naples is 10-2 still, though.
Yeah,
it was only their second loss.
Yeah, and that kind of brought them back into the pack a little bit. They still got a game or two lead in the league standings, but
there's a margin, Verk, that kind of
yeah, it definitely is.
21 points.
A team with only one loss coming in to you get beat by 20 points to a Bloomfield team who is 9-4. They're good, but I didn't think they would beat Naples by 20 points. So Naples have got to regroup, and we talked about Naples hasn't won that league title in so long.
Yeah,
hopefully they can hold on here and win the league this year.
And then finally on Tuesday night, some more results. We had School of the Arts beating HAC 58-37. Gananda traveled to North Rose Wolcott and lost 53-46. Chris Dean, 22 points and 12 rebounds. Jake Stevenson, 18 points and 16 rebounds for North Rose Wolcott, who improved to 5-7. Clyde hosted Red Creek, no problem there, 74-33. The Golden Eagles win. Canale had 22 points, 5 rebounds. Jermaine Bogan had 12. Patrick Harper had 12. And Cam DeSanto had 12. And finally, Williamson hosted Sodus and came up with a big 72-29 win behind 16 from Tom Stevens, 15 from Stevie Thompson, and 10 from Terry Rogers. So that was the week that was in Section 5, but before we get off of last week, we got to award our Section 5 Players of the Week, who will win a FingerLakes1.com t-shirt. All you got to do if you win is email us at upstatehoops@fingerlakes1.com with your t-shirt size and your mailing address, and we'll send that right out. I got Mason Jones of Mid-Lakes, Verk. I thought it was a big win for them, and 5 threes, 27 points over Palmac, and he also had 16 against Wayne in the loss. So I'm going Mason Jones of Mid-Lakes as my player of the week.
Okay. I'm going to go with a player off a team who had another big win, Jamie Rosser from Newark. He had 18-7 in the upset win over Wayne. And, it seems like Newark's really a team that's coming on right now. And, if they keep getting performances like that, I think they're going to be tough to beat throughout the end of the year and in the sectionals here.
Yeah, when Rosser's a key cog in that team, you think a lot about Micah Wright at the point, and Lombardi is doing the scoring. But Rosser gets a lot of rebounds, and he contributes a lot of points as well. And so I think that's a good choice, Verk. So email upstatehoops@fingerlakes1.com, Mason or Rosser there, and we'll send you a t-shirt. So moving on to our power rankings in the Wayne Finger Lakes League. I got mine right here, and I've moved Lyons in to number 5. Looking at them, I think they're very balanced. I think a lot of their coaching, Coach Zach Young, and they play well as a team. And, it was them or Minders, and, just I guess kind of the way that Minders has been going of late, I dropped them out. They might be able to play themselves back into the top 5. But right now I got Lyons at 5. I got Newark at 4, who's really impressive in that win over Wayne. It looks like they're really clicking right now as we head into February. 3, I got Clyde. I got Wayne at 2, despite losing to Newark. They still, with some help, can win that league, and I still think they're very impressive. I think they just got caught sleeping that game. And then number 1, of course, the undefeated Geneva Panthers, coached by Brian Miller, and they've just been impressive all season, and they got a big one coming up tomorrow night against Aquinas, not for league implications, but for sectional points, and really kind of a measuring stick game.
That's and just looking at the Class A sectional points here, Geneva's currently a 1 and Aquinas is a 4, so they could be heading towards a semifinals matchup in Class A this year. So big game for Geneva. I'll be interested to see how that one goes. Obviously, Geneva's capable of beating them. Aquinas has been a little bit surprising this year. They dropped down from AA since they graduated a bunch of Division I players from last year, and nobody really knew what to expect from this year. But they got some big wins, and that should be a great game Friday night.
Well, how about your top 5, Vert?
I'm keeping Minders in at number 5. They got 5 losses, but they don't have any bad losses. They got, 2 losses to the Geneva, 2 losses to Wayne, and 1 to Johnson City. So I'm keeping them at 5. I got Lyons just outside of that top 5,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Saturday night's game will go, a good ways to see, who's.
It's their first real test, I think, for Lyons.
Outside of Clyde, and to determine,
right.
See where Newark, Clyde, Lyons, all these teams stand. Kind of, I think that will be a big game. But it's also tough to, Trey Johnson might still be out for Lyons, so
I heard he might be back. We don't know for sure. That's just a rumor, but
Right.
heard that Johnson might be back for that game Saturday night.
And that would be obviously a huge help to Lyons. I got Clyde at 4. I got Newark at 3. Coming off, they lost the Miners in overtime. They beat Wayne. I think they're a team that's kind of on the rise right now, and I moved them all the way into number 3. I got Wayne at 2, and the undefeated Geneva Panthers at 1.
All right, well, looking ahead to the next week, we got that Aquinas-Geneva game tomorrow night. Also, Wayne travels to Penn Yan, and, that's no gimme win for Wayne. So I'll be, watching the results of that one. On Saturday night, the game, that, of course, that we are really excited about, Lyons at Newark. Live webcast on Finger Lakes 1 beginning at 7 o'clock. Brendan Harrington, Matt Verkey on the call. Real quick, Verk, just give me a line on that.
I would say Newark's got to be probably minus 7 or 8 points. I
That's
think
exactly what I was going to say. I'll say 7.5.
it's in Newark. It's a big gym. Lyons doesn't always get into the bigger gyms, and I think it's a great. I love that Coach Young scheduled that game and that they're able to play this just for the communities, but and for Lyons just playing bigger, more athletic schools to get ready for sectionals.
Just like Coach Blackwell used to do.
Sure, even if you lose, you still come away with a where you're at kind of, and might realize that you make the players realize you still got work to do, and nothing's easy. And then they're going out to Cleveland in a week or two to play Wellsville, who's another good team. So Coach Young is challenging his team here, and it's only going to help come sectional time.
Yeah, I agree. Then on Tuesday, Newark at Pelmac, Penn Yan at Geneva. Should be a test for the Panthers. Waterloo at Miners, a little crosstown rivalry game there. And then Wednesday, big game out in the West as Ben Kratsley looks for some revenge. Naples at Honeoye. So a lot of games to look forward to, and we'll be talking about them all next week on the podcast. Thanks again to Mr. Don Oakleaf of the class of Lyons 1962 for coming on. Sharing some of those stories with us and some of those memories as we look ahead to that Lyons-Newark game on Saturday night. Thanks to our sponsors, Madej, Mears, and Ricky, Generations Bank, and Newark Pilots baseball. Syracuse fans, hang tight. We'll be back in about, probably only 10 minutes tonight for the Upstate Orange podcast, where we'll debate Jim Boeheim's late game strategy, among other things. And thanks again for joining us on a snowy Thursday night for the Upstate Hoops podcast. For my partner, Matt Verkey, producer Jeremy Hunt, I'm Jim Sinacropi, and we'll see you back here next week.
www.fingerlakes1.com